Hey everybody, it's P here, and welcome to another Archetype 101, where we just go over the general strategies and cards that any archetype has to either get you ready for the next meta, or maybe to entice you to pick up a brand new deck. So today we're doing Mono Green Xeno Servant Majin Vegeta. If that's not a long try and say that 5 times fast, right? Shoutouts to my local Travis for picking out the deck. I wasn't sure what color I was going to do today, but yesterday at locals he said let's pick green, so you know what, we're running in with green. And I'm super excited. I love Majin Vegeta. I think he's a super hype character, and this is a really interesting archetype. I think a lot of people are very excited for it. Green is lining up to be a very powerful deck, and like Joey from Crossworld TCG was saying in some of his couple videos, it's nice that it feels like green is finally going to have a real archetype. Green has been good stuff deck for a while. Set 11 is really bringing in harder archetypes. Sure, we've had Ginyu and such, but in terms of like tier 1 competitiveness, I think we're lining up to have some very good archetype specific decks. Just a quick reminder, I am doing a giveaway on the channel. It is the last week to be able to sign up for the Set 11 Vermilion Bloodline Box giveaway. The eye is going to be over in the corner. Just follow the details in that video and you have yourself a shot of winning a Vermilion Bloodline Box. With that said, let's jump into it. What is the general overview of the deck? So it's a servant based aggro deck. Whereas I want to say Garlic is more Overlord oriented. You get a lot of benefits out of the Overlord aspect of it. Here it's very much the servant aspect that gets you the most. The cards are very much positioned so that the 10k boost is very relevant and that you can keep on cycling those 10k plus attacks, which makes it very powerful, because the hard part about the servants are the fact that they can't restand. But if you have a deck that works on cycling them and making sure that you can keep on punching up, punching out, and the fact that these servant cards have things like, you know, double strike or anything of the sort, super big deal. It also has a Majin Sub-Archetype. So whereas I want to say turns 1, 2, 3, you're doing the Vegeta aggro stuff, for free you're essentially getting a bonus Majin archetype that also disrupts your opponent's hand, disrupts your opponent's board. So it has two themes going on that work really well together, because one is pushing the aggro while the other is working in the background to get yourself those closing turns. It's also very Unison marker removal. What we're seeing from set 11 is that we're seeing more interaction with Unison cards, and that's not that surprising. Set 1, you don't want to have too much interaction with your new mechanic or with your new card type, because you really want to incentivize people to play them, experiment with them, and really give them the highlight. Going into set 11, we're seeing that now there's a lot of marker turbo and marker removal, and we're not just talking one marker, we're talking 2, 3 markers. So a lot of ways moving into the next meta to be able to interact with Unison cards, especially in green. So first we'll start off with the leader, Vegeta and Babidi. Overlord, which means once per turn you can ship down a servant to the bottom of your deck and draw a card. And then Auto, add 1 card from your life to your hand. When this card attacks, draw 1 card, and this card gets 5k power and double strike for the turn. So now we have an unawakened double strike leader that self-awakens. This is huge because it's great for taking down Unisons. Now we have a double striker guaranteed from turn 1. So if there's any really tough turn 2 Unison, we can deal with it. If there's any tough turn 1 Unison, we can probably deal with it. So it's a very versatile, and it's obviously very good for aggro. Awaken, when your life's at 5 or less, you may switch up to 2 your energy active mode and then flip this card. Energy Awaken leader, very good, allows us to extend our plays, especially in an aggressive deck. On the Awaken side, we have Babidi and Prince of Destruction Vegeta, Mightiest Majin. So Overlord, once per turn, again, same thing. Activate main, once per turn, add 1 card from your life to your hand, draw 1 card, and this card gets 5k power and double strike for the turn. So it's very powerful. Not as powerful, right? Because now we have to commit to it before we're going into our swing. It's an activate main, which means we can't do it after seeing that our opponent is choosing to not negate our attacks. So it's still very strong, because having a double strike option on your leader, like if your opponent's tapped out or if you just happen to rip out all the cards in his hand, very, very great to have, at least as an additional option. And then activate main once per turn for 1 green. You may look at the bottom card of your deck. If it's a Vegeta card with an energy cost of 3 or less and servant skill, you may play it, otherwise return to the bottom of the deck. So we're shipping the Vegetas to the bottom of our deck, which have servant, and then we're getting them back for 1 green, which means that we're swinging for huge 25k swings. I think the 3-drop has double strike. So now you're seeing that this servant oriented repetition of the aggro So what are the servants then? We have 3 Vegetas to look at. So the 2-drop is Mighty Strike, Prince of Destruction. It's a counter attack, negate the attack, play this card, and then look at up 7 cards from the top of your deck, add up to 1 green Unison card with a specified cost of 3 among them to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. A lot of usage here. And it's a 25k servant. But this is super good, right? It's a negate, it allows us to search, and it's a beater. So it does a lot for 1 card. You know, I didn't fully read this card beforehand. This is really good. Then we have the 3-drop Prince of Destruction Vegeta, Life and Death, and here's the double striker. So now we have a 30k double striker that for 1 energy, once we already have it on board, can just start cycling and cycling and cycling. Auto, once per turn, when your opponent activates a counter skill, switch this card to active mode. So they negate, we're going to be able to punch it again. And then you ship it down, which means theoretically, if your opponent has 2 negates that he has to time with this Vegeta, you could attack 4 times with Vegeta, depending on how they time it. So very strong card. And finally, we have the 4-drop SR, Deflect, Triple Strike, Servant. Auto, if your leader card is mono green, when this card is played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's Unison cards and remove 3 markers from it. So now we have the Unison removal, which is great because, you know, this could include things like blocker Unisons, which we're seeing much more of, or just anything that this allows us to be able to go into a closer that additionally helps us not die on the crackback in case there's a Unison there that could close out the game the turn after. Very strong card. Also, technically, if there's a Unison with like 6 markers, which is very possible because we are seeing, you know, red decks being turbo markers. With this, we're able to go ahead and just remove 6 markers out of a Unison if that's what we want to do. There's no way a Unison is bigger than 30k. This allows us to get in close in that. And if not, then we just get to turbo out more aggression with a huge triple striker. Then we have the Overlord. We have the leader, and the fact that you have Overlord on the leader on both sides means that we don't really need to mitigate having an Overlord on the board, but we do have an extra option in Bibbidi, Creator of the Majin, for a 2-drop. He additionally has an auto that when he's removed from the battle area with an opponent's skill, choose up to 1 green battle card, which costs a 3 or less with servant skill in your hand and play it. So it's a free play of a servant. The 3-drop being the double striker. Pretty good. I don't know how many you'd play of this, but it is extra utility in having extra Overlord if you want to really work on turboing out and cycling those Vegetas. Then we run into the Majin Sub-Archetype. So while you're doing your Vegeta aggro stuff, in the background, you're actually essentially doing Majin stuff, what is essentially for free. So we have Babidi, Evil Mind Snatcher. Auto, when this card is played, choose 1. Activate up to 1 the Majin Quickening from your deck or your hand, and then shuffle your deck if you look through it. Or we look at the top 7 cards of the deck, add up to 1 Vegeta with servant skill among them, and then shuffle your deck. So it's a searcher. Additionally though, it activates a field card, the Majin Quickening. So when this comes on, when you add a card from your life to your hand, or it goes to your drop area, so anytime you take damage, place a top card of your deck under this card. Activate main. If your leader is Green Evil Wizard Babidi, which the leader is also a Babidi, and you place this card and the 4 cards under it into your drop area, so you need to have taken life 4 times for this to actually proc off. So you won't be able to activate at 5 life, you'll be activating at 4 life assuming you get it off on turn 1. Which, you know, between the Babidis and the Majin Quickenings, if this is something you're looking at doing, you can have 8 copies in your deck. Odds are you're going to have them in your opening hand. You get to play up to 1 green Majin Buu with an energy cost of 3 from your deck or drop area, and then shuffle your deck if you look through it. 3-drop Majin Buus. Okay, well, what are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at this 3-drop Majin Buu looking for a fight. He's got Deflect, which is great. Means he's going to be able to get in. He might die to like a Frieza afterwards, but at least guaranteed he will be able to get in versus like, let's say, Blue. When this card is played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards when energy cost of 4 less and KO. Okay, so essentially for free, we get a KO, right? We get a free KO of a battle card. We have a 20k beat stick, not bad. We also have this other option in Majin Buu Ghastly Energy, this one having Barrier, which it's nice having those options, right? Because if you know you're going up against, like, let's say a green deck and you're afraid of their Frieza counterplay, you can go into the Barrier Majin Buu. If you're going up against blue, you can go into the Deflect Majin Buu. So that kind of versatility there is really cool. And then auto, if your leader card's green, when this card's played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's Unison cards and remove a marker from it. So now we have some additional free Unison marker removal. Pretty strong. But it's not busted, right? Like this in itself isn't good enough for us to want to run. Of course, there's more. and it's Xeno-Majin. So we have the 3-star ball, Parasitic Darkness, permanent. This card gains Dark Dragon Ball in all areas. Activate battle, choose up to 1 of your cards, and that card gets 5k power for the battle. So we have the typical Dragon Ball effect. It's nice that we have the versatility of having extra combo if we're not able to proc off this card's activate main, which is choose 1 mono green Majin Buu card range cost of 3. We just saw those. In your battle area, and place this card under it. Choose up to 1 green Majin Buu Xeno with an energy cost of 5 or less from your deck or hand. Play it on top of the chosen card in active mode. So we get to attack and then restand. Then choose your deck if you look through it. Okay, well then what's the 5-drop? Majin Buu Dark Parasite, deflect. If your leader card is green and you choose 1 of your Unison cards and remove a marker from it. Seems bad. We're going to see the Unison card too soon. That's actually pretty relevant. When this card is played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's Unison cards and remove a marker from it. Then your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand and 1 of their battle cards and places them in their owner's drop area. All right, cool. So now we have some additional removal at the cost of a marker, but that's actually a plus for what this deck is trying to do. They're negging a card, dropping, and this is all for free. Once we get the 1-drop down, this is the 3-drop attack, use this ball, go into the 5-drop in active mode, removal, another 20k swing if that's what we wanted, and then finally, we can EX evolve into this Majin Buu Royal Absorption. Double strike, dual attack. Okay, so potential 4 damage there. And you get to evolve on top of a 5. That's the one that we just showed right here. When this card is removed from your battle by an opponent's skill, play up to 1 green Majin Buu card when it costs 3 from your drop area. Then add up to 1 Dark Dragon Ball card from your drop area to your hand. So we have a huge attacker. We just got a lot of value in terms of forcing our opponent to lose a card, to lose markers, lose a battle card. And then we have a double striking dual attacker. And this is stuff that up until now, we've only had to dedicate 2 energy for. 1 energy on turn 1, another energy when we evolve into the Majin Buu. So a lot of these plays are free, which makes it really, really good. And then you know what? You have the potential of removing my Majin Buu. I can go right back into the 3-drop and repeat the chain all over again because it brings me back to 3-star ball, brings me back to 3-drop. Then I just search up the 5, go into the 7 again if I have it in hand. Very good recursion, very good way of being able to press against your opponent while also forcing them out of resources, forcing them out of options. So removing markers seems pretty bad until you realize that Dark Broly's a card. This card is so strong. So we have Dark Broly, Overwhelming Evil. Here's the 3-drop Unison that we were able to search up beforehand. He has double strike. Okay, double striking is always really good on Unison card. Auto, once per turn, when a marker is removed from this card by a skill, your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand and discards a card. Who asked for this? Who asked for this? Because he's a 20k beat stick, odds are you're already pitching cards to combo anyways. So Broly is going to be extremely difficult to deal with on board. I think it's just one of those Unisons that you just kind of have to ignore and try and kill your opponent. Because if you commit too many resources trying to kill Broly, which is very possible given that he's a 20k Unison card, odds are I think you're not putting yourself in a great position. It's a phenomenal card. I think any green deck should be looking to use him. And, and that would be good enough on its own. But he's got extra stuff. He's got a +2. You may choose 1 card from your hand and discard it. If you do, your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand, discards it, and then chooses 1 of their battle cards and KOs it. Okay, so now he's a +2 KO and negability. That's insane. And then +0, if your leader card is green, choose up to 1 of your opponent's Unison cards and remove a marker from it. So we also additionally have that extra flex of removing a marker, which could be very relevant when we're talking about preventing our opponent from using the free counterplays by getting them down to below 1 marker, or below 2 markers. And this can proc off on our turn as well, which means now removing a marker from our Unison card is actually a plus, because every time we do it, at least once per turn, we are removing a card from our opponent's hand, which is insane. And if we don't want to do the Majin stuff to do it, we also have the self marker removal. We have extra cards that do it for us, namely in these Demon God Deborah cards. So Demon God Deborah, Dark Dominion, 2-drop. If your leader card is green, you discard this card from your hand and choose up to 1 of your Unison cards and remove a marker from it. Now, the only clarification I'm not 100% sure on is, does this count as a skill doing it or as a cost? I believe it still procs off, but I double verify that. I'm not confident enough to say that for sure, but I think it procs off. Add up to 1 green Dark Dragon Ball card from your deck or drop area to your hand, and then shuffle your deck if it's looked through. So extra consistency in making sure we're able to find our Dark Dragon Ball, as well as proccing off our Broly. Deborah, King of Demon Realm. If your lead card is green, you choose one of your Unison cards and remove a marker from it. When this card is played, choose up to one of your opponent's Unison cards and remove a marker from it. So 1-for-1 Unison marker removal. Again, more marker removal proc. And finally, we have Final Explosion. Activate battle. If your lead card is a green Vegeta card, choose up to one of your cards and it gets 10k power for the battle. Then choose up to one of your Unison cards and you may remove a marker from it. So for this one for sure, this is guaranteed an effect. This definitely procs off the Broly. And remove a marker from it. If you do, choose up to one of your opponent's Unison cards and remove a marker from it. Again, more marker removal, more defensive options to be able to proc off our Broly. And additionally, we have field removal. Activate main for green. If your leader card is green and you discard this card from your hand, choose up to one card in your opponent's battle area with an energy cost of 1 and the field skill and place it in its owner's drop area. This is really good, right? It's a versatile option for 1 energy. You don't need to invest too much into it to be able to remove a field card, although your leader does need to be green. So there is something about that, and it is costing you a card. But against Invoker, let's say, it's a great way to remove Arena. And there are a number of field spells that this deals with. Mind you, a lot of field spells that come down for free aren't 1 costs to begin with. Like Baby's Planet Tuffle is a 3-drop, I believe. So Deborah won't be able to remove that, but it's flexibility that is important to consider, not only for this Majin Vegeta archetype, but for any green deck. And that's the mono green Xeno Majin Vegeta deck. See, try and say that 5 times quickly. A very powerful aggro-oriented strategy, swinging in and recurring huge, double striking servant attackers that we can then start replaying for cheap. And while we're doing that, we're taking life from our leader, swing double strike with our leader. So double strike swings across the board, and for free as a bonus, we get an entire Majin Buu chain to be able to rip cards out of opponent's hands, clean up the board, and close the game with double strike dual attacks. On top of having a very powerful Unison card that rips cards out of our opponent's hands, has double strike himself, and has additional removal options. So an insane amount of double strike. This is basically double strike.deck in a very, very powerful archetype. And I think, I think this is going to be a great archetype to settle in moving into set 11, especially because you don't need all the great generic Jackbox cards. Are they helpful? Sure, but you do not need them, and this deck can be very powerful and push really big plays, from turn 4 onwards, because 4 energy is a ton in this deck. 4 energy does a lot, especially if the bottom of your deck is already set up with some servants. So what do you guys think of the deck below? Are you really excited to pick up Majin Vegeta for set 11? If you guys liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Hey, if you thought it was bad, thumbs down works too. If you want to see more Archetype 101s, we're ripping through them the entire week, then feel free to give a subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Ciao.